Hello there everyone, and welcome to another edition of Shadow Briefs. Over the last few months we've been really busy filming new episodes of Shadow Paranormal. Most of these would be due to release next year. One place we went to was Alresford Church in Essex. Now this is somewhere that I had been before by myself and had a very unusual experience there, so we decided to go back and actually film a full episode of the location. It was about 2017, I'd gone there by myself, I'd set up a couple of pieces of equipment and I was just kind of waiting for it to get a bit darker, and I was just taking in the environment when I heard the sound of footsteps in the car park, which is literally just backs onto the church itself. I heard these footsteps walk from the car park through into the church, and I turned around expecting to see a dog walker or just someone out for a walk just to appear there, and there was nothing, and the footsteps continued through the church, and I was actually able to track where the footsteps were coming from as they sort of moved across the church. Got to the other door at the other side of the church and just suddenly stopped. Very bizarre experience, and unfortunately I wasn't filming at the time when that happened. So fast forward 7-8 years later, decided to go back there and film a full episode with the hopes of recording something similar actually onto camera. Our first night there was very quiet, didn't really record anything substantial, so we're actually planning another trip back there, hopefully next month, to see if we can try and really get something substantial on camera whilst there. Another church we investigated was Tibbetshall St Mary in Norfolk. This is a place that's made its way onto a number of top 10 haunted places in Norfolk lists. So it's somewhere that's been on my radar for quite some time, and again, very fascinating place. It's got a haunted history there. We weren't really able to document anything to support that. However, something that was very memorable about that night was that we were right on the cusp of a thunderstorm, which sort of did get us all thinking really about how feel of a thunderstorm changes the environment and changes the atmosphere in a place, because it's a very hot, humid day whilst we were filming there. Got to, I'd probably say about 11 o'clock at night, and we started seeing flashes of lightning and thunder, hearing the rolling thunder. And yeah, the atmosphere completely changed. The humidity kind of lifted, that heavy atmosphere of a hot day lifted, and yeah, the whole environment changed there. And the thing that interested us was we could all feel that change in the environment, yet we knew it was caused by weather. And it did make us wonder, when people say they felt a change in an environment, and it's certainly something everyone can feel when something like that happens. There's some people sort of lean into it and say the atmosphere's changed here, it's paranormal, or, linked to a ghost trying to manifest itself, when in reality it's just a meteorological event, just a weather pattern, nothing particularly unusual about it. So it did sort of get us thinking and talking about things such as that, especially if you're investigating a location inside and unknown to you outside there's a thunderstorm coming in and that atmosphere changes. You're not going to know that there's a thunderstorm outside. So yeah, just opened up a sort of a window of discussion and just different ways of looking at hauntings and paranormal events. We also headed out last month with the Suffolk Spirit Hunters. They're a group that I've been following for quite some time now. I think they've been going a few years. And yeah, it was great meeting up with them. We went to Little Cornard Churchyard, an old favourite location of ours. Again, didn't really have a huge amount of activity whilst we were there, but it's always great investigating with other groups. Not only do you get to see how they go about doing things, it can give you ideas of, maybe things we could try on an investigation. But it's also nice to just hang out with them and discuss ideas, discuss all sorts of things relating to the paranormal. It's just nice to be able to go out with people that have something really in common with you, and they do the same thing as you, but obviously every group does things slightly differently, so it's always good to exchange ideas. But it was great meeting up with them, and I'm hoping that won't be our last outing with that group. The main place we went to last month was the infamous Canace Woods. Now this is a woodland up in Staffordshire. It's absolutely enormous. I think it's something like 25 acres of woodland there. I've known about this place for a long while. There's a lot of videos on YouTube, people doing overnight camping in the UK's most haunted woods. Loads of investigators have been there, and it's a place that every year seems to pop up in news articles of someone having a sighting there, someone having an experience there. And just researching that place was enough for me. Just going in through and sort of seeing all the different things that people have experienced and seen whilst there. There's everything from classic ghosts. I think there's some like phantom hitchhikers that have been seen there, all the way through to a Bigfoot type creature that people have claimed to have seen. I think there's a massive anaconda type snake that's in some of the lakes there. A few fishermen have actually seen. There's werewolves. There's a human pig hybrid type creature. So there's a lot of weird stuff there. UFOs, another. I think it's one of the big UFO hotspots in the country. So we've investigated 4 different places. Well, we tried to investigate 4 different places whilst in Canace Chase. Unfortunately, the weather was abysmal. We filmed this on the 4th of July, so you'd expect it to be a nice, hot, sunny day. But it was such a washout. I think we got to investigate, I think, 2 places whilst there, and we just had to call it a day after that because the rain was just too bad. It is one of those unfortunate things when investigating the paranormal, especially in outdoor locations. You've got no control over the weather. We tried to investigate each of the 4 places. I think we managed 1 or 2 in the end, and we just had to stop because of the weather. And I know I've had conversations with people before, and they say, well, why don't you just sort of brave the weather? You know, ghosts come out in the rain, wind, and you know, all of that. Ghosts do come out in all of those weathers. Unfortunately, our cameras don't work in all of those weathers, and we've got a lot of expensive equipment, so it's like, it's alright if it gets just a little bit damp on some of our equipment. I'm not bothered about that. It's when you start getting like rain pouring down sideways, and yeah, it's not worth damaging our equipment when out in these places when the weather turns. So really unfortunate. I was so hopeful that we'd sort of get a lot of things from Canace Chase. It was just one of those where it was completely rained off. But the episode, I've nearly finished editing it. I'm really happy with the episode. It still could be well worth a watch. There's a lot of information and a lot of stories that we sort of delve into in that. But yeah, in terms of the investigation side of it, really unfortunate. But yeah, it was rained off on that occasion. As I've said previously with these shadow brief videos, I try and get either 1 out a month or every 2 months. But you probably see there's been another big gap between uploading this video and the last one. And that's because we had somewhat of a disaster. Whilst out filming at Alresford Church, funnily enough, our main camera that we use for filming the episodes, I pulled it out of the bag and it was broken. So this is the main camera we use for filming episodes. As I say, pulled it out of the bag and this bit was hanging off. Don't know how it happened. I don't know whether when I closed the boot on the car it had somehow caught the camera. Don't know how it happened. Yeah, our camera was dead, so I thought. So, I mean, that was devastating for me when that happened. We completed the investigation. I got home that night. I slept on it. I woke up the next morning. And for a few days, I considered quitting investigating the paranormal and making videos. Because that camera was damaged and that was the workhorse. That's what we used to film everything, pretty much. And obviously, as I've mentioned in other videos, it's a real struggle now getting access to places because of the cost of it. And it was that combined with the lack of camera. And I really did think, you know, I'm going to quit this. And there were 2 days where I did completely. I stopped editing everything. I just said, right, that's it. I'm done with Shadow Paranormal. And then it got to the end of the 2nd day and I was thinking, I need a hobby now because Shadow Paranormal's been my life doing all of this, you know. I need to find something to fill my time. And I thought, I could make videos on, I don't know, just history then. Oh, I can't make videos. That's the whole point of, you know, that's the issue. So I was thinking of other things I could do, other hobbies I could get into aside from this. And it took all of 2 days for me to realise there's nothing that could replace doing this, making videos, investigating, visiting these places. And it was then that it dawned on me how important all of this is in my life. I mean, I've been doing it for all of my adult life. You know, I'm coming up to 30 next year. I've been doing this since I was 16, so I don't know anything else. And the idea of stopping it entirely, kind of, it wasn't an option for me. It is the reality of it. So after a couple of days of moping, I thought I'm going to contact a company, see if I can get my camera fixed. I just want to give them a shout out. First Aid Repairs. I think they do a lot of Panasonic repairs, certainly a lot of camcorders, things like that. Fantastic service. I contacted them. I sent them photos over. They said that they'd need to sort of physically inspect it. I just posted the camera off to them. I can't recommend them highly enough if you've got any damaged camcorders and you because I thought the camera was dead. I didn't think there was any bringing it back from the grave. But I sent it off to them, and like I say, their service has been phenomenal. I'll leave a link to them down in the description. Should anybody have a camera that's in need of repairs. Luckily, I got the camera back and back up and running now. But yeah, it was. I just wanted to bring that up in this video because it was one of those real poignant moments where I did have a real consider and think about what is it I'm doing, and I realised I'm doing. This is it. This is what I do, and if there was anything that was ever going to stop me doing it, it would have probably been that moment there, because that's the only time I've considered stopping, and I powered through that. So just so you're all aware, I'll be here for the long haul. A lot of people have asked me what's happening with the full-length episodes, because we haven't uploaded any full-length episodes since, I think it was start of last year, was the last end of the last series, and obviously we've been telling you about all these places we've been filming at and investigating. When are you going to be able to see the episodes? We've got a new series coming out in October. We've got a couple of episodes in that. They're going to be sort of slightly longer and slightly different format to what we'd normally do with Shadow Paranormal. We're looking well over an hour each on those episodes. And instead of sort of it being based on a location, it's going to be based on a certain paranormal topic. We've got one coming out on like stone circles, places like Stonehenge, monoliths, ancient sort of ceremonial sites and that kind of thing. And we've got another one coming out on Ouija boards and sort of just looking into the history of Ouija boards. Do they work? Are they as dangerous as people say they are? And then looking into sort of dowsing, things like that, sort of old school paranormal investigating techniques and divination and that kind of thing. So they'll be out in October this year. And if you haven't already seen it, here's the trailer for the first episode.
What is that? It just went right like across the treetops.
Goodness, what is that?
Call upon those who once worshipped here at the sanctuary. Right then, time to look at some news. So here we are, first article. This is from El Pay, which I believe is a Spanish news article. This is from the 8th of August 2025. And the headline here is The Ghosts of the British Royal Family, Seances with Elizabeth II and Queen Camilla's Haunted Mansion. Okay, so here we are. Prince Harry confessed in his autobiography Spare that he had turned to a spirit guide to invoke his late mother, Princess Diana of Wales, who had a great interest in the mystical world and turned to her personal psychic Sally Morgan up to 3 times a week. But an inclination and interest in paranormal events is not exclusive to the youngest son of Charles III and Lady Di, but shared by the British royal family in general. Biographer Robert Hardman, in the latest episode of the Daily Mail podcast Queens, Kings and Dastardly Things, released on August 7th, recalled a story related to the royals and the paranormal. It occurred one night in 1953 when Queen Elizabeth II attended a séance to connect with her deceased father, King George VI. The story begins at the royal residence of Sandringham in the county of Norfolk, England, where the staff of the estate, where the Windsor traditionally celebrate Christmas, were frightened by unexplained phenomena occurring in the bedroom where George VI had died in 1952. The situation escalated to the point where they decided to appeal to the Queen Mother. To address the situation, Elizabeth II's mother contacted a local parish priest in 1953 to perform a religious cleansing ceremony inside the room, inviting her daughter and her lady-in-waiting, Prue Penn, to attend. So very interesting there. For some reason, I'm not surprised that certainly the royals and you know, people associated with them have this belief in the paranormal, especially going back to the 50s. You're still by then still on the tail end of the spiritualist movement and things like that. So yeah, it's not overly surprising that they've got this connection and interest in such things, but it's still very interesting reading about, especially that you know, by looking at this, they had either a blessing or some kind of exorcism performed ex Sandringham. That's certainly something I've ever heard of before. It wasn't a conventional exorcism. There was no dramatic expulsion of demons as you see in the movies. The room was said to house a tormented spirit, and the parish priest was supposed to bless the place. Hardman explains in conversation with his co-host Kate Williams about an anecdote first reported in 2000 by the late Kenneth Rose, a royal biographer and journalist. During the service in the haunted room, communion was taken and special prayers were said, aimed at dispelling the wandering spirit of George VI. Although, as Rose speculated at the time, no one was quite sure who the ghost was supposed to be. Whether or not the British royals who participated in the 1953 seance believed the palace staff's fears about paranormal phenomena remains a mystery. As Hardman and Williams explained in their podcast, they believe the Queen Mother decided to conduct the seance to show her servants that they took their concerns seriously. And Harman adds her own impressions of the attendees. It was particularly odd that Elizabeth II attended, given her cynicism about this kind of wild theory. The late Queen had strong faith, but she wasn't superstitious. She didn't have time for such theories, but she did have a strong sense of the spiritual, as King Charles III does. So yeah, the article goes on there. Really interesting. As I say, towards the end of the article, they're sort of saying they're not sure whether, you know, the actual royals themselves, how much they believed in all of this. Certainly, Sandringham is the sort of place you may expect to be haunted. It's very, very old. It's had hundreds, if not thousands, of people pass through there over the years. I wonder if there was some kind of, you know, around that time, some sort of outburst of a poltergeist type activity. Or, you know, just sort of a haunting temporarily manifesting itself there. But either way, this seems like, looking at this, to have been something going on. But yeah, really interesting. It's got that royal connection to it as well. Certainly, I don't think it was George VI that was haunting there, but certainly it does sound like there was some kind of unusual activity going on in Sandringham in the early 50s. So, next article here. This one is from the 11th of August. Going into a bit of a tangent with this one, I can imagine, looking at the headline. Matt Rife bought Ed and Lorraine Warren's home, and paranormal TikTok is freaking the fuck out. Paranormal TikTok has been sent into a tizzy after comedian Matt Rife and YouTuber Elton Castee purchased the home-turned-museum of renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, as many of you probably know, I'm not a big fan of Ed and Lorraine Warren for a multitude of reasons. Most of it boils down to the fact that they were both frauds, fakes, and they exploited so many people over the years. There's still a great deal of people out there who hold them on a pedestal and in such high regard, but I mean the facts are there that these people are you know, they're cons. Nothing that they've ever done has been real. And I'd say that I know there are people that disagree with me, but the facts speak for themselves if you look into it. Rife29 shared the news on social media last week, noting that he and Castee are officially the legal guardians of the Warren Occult Museum and the caretakers of more than 750 artefacts within the collection, including the infamous Annabelle doll. Oh yes, that's the home of the cursed little redhead who inspired the Annabelle horror franchise and whose owners, the Warrens, inspired the Conjuring movies. I've officially purchased Ed and Lorraine Warren's home and occult museum, including being the legal guardian for the next 5 years of the entire haunted collection, including the Annabelle doll, Rife wrote on Instagram, noting that while he and Castee will be managing the estate, they technically don't own the curios inside the museum. In a TikTok video which currently has more than 27 million views, Rife said that he and Castee have plans to allow people to stay in the house overnight. What this means for you guys is, you are soon going to be able to book a night or a weekend and be able to stay at the Warrens' house and investigate the house, the history of the house, as well as the museum and all the artefacts inside of it. So going a little bit further down the article, there was an investigator quite recently who was in possession of the Annabelle doll who passed away. Again, obviously you get people on the internet jumping on this, the Annabelle dolls killed him. From what I understand, I don't know if official cause of death has been released yet, but I mean, people die, you know, he would have died regardless of having that doll in his possession. But people obviously link the two, so it does mention that in here. So the article goes on. Some paranormal experts don't believe the Warrens' collection should be publicised in this way. Paranormal researcher and the Warrens' grandson, Chris McKinnell, has warned against Rife and Cassie's plan to open up the property for stays and self-led investigations. According to McKinnell, the home was never supposed to be a public attraction, but rather a controlled environment for education, spiritual research and protection. We're dealing with forces we don't fully understand. That demands more than curiosity. It demands context, caution and spiritual responsibility, he told TMZ. While he says he has no beef against Rife or Cassie, he told the publication this aim was to warn the public about the energies in this place can be deadly. Should Rife watch out, or is this just ghost stories terrifying the masses on a very public scale? Who knows? Either way, I'm staying the fuck away from that creepy ass doll. Load of nonsense, that article. I don't know how this still makes headlines, and it's like you get all of these big paranormal groups out there that share articles like this. The Warrens should have nothing to do with the paranormal, and I don't particularly like speaking ill of the dead, but I mean, these guys spent their lives exploiting the dead, so I think we can get away with that in this instance. I do wonder if maybe the grandson, possibly, and this is just mere speculation, the reason he doesn't want it opened up for groups to come in and investigate is because they're very soon going to find out that actually there's nothing unusual or paranormal going on in that museum. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are 1 or 2 artifacts in that museum that have been linked to something quite dark, and I'm not talking about spiritually dark, I'm talking about a murder, something along those lines, or just very, horrible human events. I've got no doubt there's bits and pieces in there relating to that, but as for these objects being cursed and haunted, I don't believe in it, and I'm hoping if we get some decent groups go in and investigate that place, it will soon be revealed that it's a load of hocus pocus nonsense. Okay, so this is from the Daily Star, everybody's favourite red top newspaper. Woman living with 54 haunted dolls claims they hack into my Amazon Alexa. A woman who claims she practices the paranormal safely has collected 54 haunted dolls in her home and claims the pesky toys often hack into her Amazon Alexa. Collector Tej, who works as a paranormal investigator, has been collecting ghoulish items for the past 5 years and now shares her home with dozens of them. Having first connected with the other side in childhood, Tej says she isn't afraid and has largely positive interactions with spirits. So much so that she has given them a dedicated room in her house, and Tej lets them play with the lighting, frolic with the fridge, and even take over her electronics, playing their favourite songs on the Alexa speaker. But Tej has a list of rules that they must abide by before she agrees to let them reside with her. We clearly explain our expectations, no harm to us, our pets or anyone who visits the house, the US-based collector said. The only formal step we take when welcoming a new haunted doll is setting verbal boundaries. While we've never had an issue, it's something we do out of precaution, since every new spirit is an unknown until we get to know them better. This is ridiculous. It's got pictures of them there. I mean, the haunted doll thing, I think that came about 10, 50 years ago, I reckon. It started to become really popular, people selling haunted dolls on eBay and stuff. What a load of bollocks. I don't know what to say on this. I'm hoping that this lady doesn't really believe this, because I know there are some people that deal with this and they'll put the YouTube videos out and they'll, claim to be a haunted collector, and you can tell they really don't believe in it, but the money's rolling in, so keep up the act. But I mean, I really hope this lady doesn't believe in this seriously, because it's sort of bordering onto, I don't know, delusion and sort of things like that. I think I don't know how much more of this article I can take, and I'm just scrolling down it and just looking at some of the bits and pieces in here, and yeah, I think I've chosen the wrong article to look at here because it is bloody ridiculous. The idea that you can just buy a doll and it's got a ghost attached to it. I mean, to be fair, I don't know why Hasbro hasn't started marketing haunted dolls like that, because they'd fly off the shelves. You get a doll and you get a little backstory of the ghost attached to it, put it on there, and there's a whole market for it. But yeah, I don't know whether to be disappointed or sad for her. I don't know. It's yeah, it's bizarre. And again, very much the same as the Warrens, has no place in the paranormal when looking at things sort of seriously. So the final article here is from CNN Travel from the 25th of July. Haunted Venice Island to become a locals-only haven where tourists are banned. We are, of course, talking about Pavllia Island. This is somewhere I was hoping to actually investigate a few years back, but the logistics of it were too much for us to kind of get round to doing it. Basically, it's a island in the lagoon near Venice. It had an old asylum on there. I don't know if it's true, but from what I've heard as well, it was like a plague dumping pit. They'd boat the people out that had the plague and leave them to die on the island and then burn the bodies there. Quite a dark history of a place, but yeah, it's fantastic, and just the idea of being trapped alone on an island for a night would have been fantastic. But I mean, really going from the headline on this article, it doesn't look like we'll be doing that. Venice, the abandoned Venetian island of Pavllia, site of a plague pit and former asylum, is about to take on a happier new identity. On August the 1st, a group of Venetians will take possession of the supposedly haunted island under a 99-year lease from the Italian state and embark on a project to turn it into an urban park open only to residents of the Italian city. The locals fought off stiff competition from property developers to ensure Pavllia remained a public asset. In 2014, the island, which is around 7.5 hectares in size and sits in the southern part of Venice Lagoon, was put on auction list by the Italian State Property Agency, opening up to developers tempted by its peaceful but convenient location just 3 miles from St Mark's Square. Horrified at the prospect of the island being sold to a private buyer, Patrizio Velclani formed a group, Pavllia per Tutti, which means Pavllia for everyone, to try to save the island and others like it that are in the government's auction list. The group, which has more than 4,500 members, managed to raise €46,000 and secure the lease. An overgrown woodland, a military fortress, 15 dilapidated hospital buildings, and a rather large colony of rabbits are all that remain on the island, the group says. Pavlia's spooky history goes back to an outbreak of the bubonic plague in the 18th century, brought to Venice by fleas on merchant ships during a period when the city was an international trading hub. As the plague spread, the island was converted into a maritime quarantine dock for merchant ships arriving from abroad for people with symptoms. Before that, it was inhabited by farmers and fishermen, having been founded as a Roman military base in 421 BCE. The island's farm buildings and military barracks were transformed into dormitories where the sick lived together and were subject to primitive treatments like bloodletting. As the plague spread, the dead were buried in mass graves. Venetian historians estimate that more than 160,000 people were buried on the island between the 18th and 19th centuries. In the 19th century, Pavllia became an asylum for mentally ill people who were often restrained and subject to experimental treatments. The asylum closed in 1968 and the island has been uninhabited ever since. So, I mean, that's a good news story. I know someone, well, I saw a video of someone that went to the island, might have been 5-6 years ago, and the asylum was in such a state of disrepair. I mean, I'm one that's always saying I love abandoned buildings just being left abandoned, but this one was beyond repair. I wouldn't be surprised if they tear the whole thing down, because just looking at the, like I say, the video I saw of it, it doesn't look like it can be salvaged, unfortunately. But what a great thing that, you know, essentially the island's going to be saved. It's going to be brought back to life. I think that's fantastic. It says in there as well, I think it's only going to be for locals, which means I think it's not basically going to be a touristy place, which is by me. I think that's great. It's a nice place. I mean, Venice is overtaken by tourists, so I think they deserve somewhere that they can call their own. So yeah, great little story to end this. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with it and what they can turn it into. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember to like and comment and subscribe if you haven't done already. It really does help with the algorithm and getting our videos sort of boosted up so they are seen by a lot more people, and the YouTube gods decide to show them to people. Like I say, really does help a lot with that side of things. As I mentioned, we've got a new series coming out in October, so if I don't see you before then, wish you all the best and I'll see you then.